In recent weeks, Boeing made some pretty major announcements to its business. That's going to be the focus in today's proceedings, alongside British Airways cutting routes and Delta expanding. Firstly, Delta's expansion efforts. Well, it is attempting to realign key aircraft to markets that were previously featured across its operation. One of the more notable changes that we will be witnessing is the relaunch of flights to Shanghai, which is part of the airline's attempts to rebuild that network I talk about, but specifically focusing in on Asian markets. The US carrier says flights will relaunch between Los Angeles and Shanghai in June next year. Thrice weekly services will be deployed between the two cities, with Delta to use what it calls its state-of-the-art A350-900, this wide-body being quite the popular option for long-haul flying nowadays, and these very A350s have Delta One suites, Delta Premium Select, Delta Comfort Plus, and main cabin options. So as a result, customers are given ample choice. While the route is still subject to government approval, the return will occur for the first time since the airline axed this service during the global pandemic. Delta notes that while the US and China markets still haven't reached pre-COVID levels of flight, the recommencement of routes such as the Shanghai one is viewed as the right step in the direction. But it won't just be Shanghai. Delta will also offer non-stop flights from its key hub, Minneapolis-St. Paul, to Copenhagen. The first ever flights are part of Delta's ambition to increase customer connectivity options when on transatlantic services from the United States to Europe. Delta will fly thrice weekly between the two places, and the service is expected to commence in May 2025. Once launched, Delta will offer customers access to 7 different European destinations from Minneapolis. It is incredibly proud of this feat and hopes to continue developing it as more aircraft become available alongside network reshuffles. On your screen now, and feel free to pause, is Delta's largest ever transatlantic summer, with some key stats, such as 700 weekly flights to 33 European destinations and beyond, and you're also able to see the increase in services alongside new routes to go along with everything else that is already existing. And again, to reiterate, some of these are going to be new routes, some are going to be returning, and more importantly, some are going to be getting an increase in their weekly flying. Interestingly, Delta's largest flight schedule was released basically a day after United announced something similar with its network for transatlantic operations. Why is this funny? Well, because as each airline is obviously looking to grow its business, primarily focusing in on the United States, with the arrival of more aircraft, these networks are only going to grow each year, and as I've touched on in recent videos, it is certainly funny to see titles such as the largest ever expansion and so forth coming every single year. Over to Boeing. The 767F's end was confirmed in a series of landmark announcements unveiled by the plane maker as it attempts to manage its finances. Boeing has long suspended production of its 767 passenger series, this being a highly successful twin-engine jet that you could certainly argue redefined flying thanks to the development of ETOPS. However, the program has remained alive and kicking because of various other endeavors using the 767 as a premise, and this includes the freighter, which has acted as a fantastic alternative. In a statement, Boeing said it plans to build and deliver the remaining 767Fs that have been ordered promptly to their key customers, and once this does occur, will wrap up production on the 767 and move on to new endeavors, ending nearly 50 years of continued production in some form. While Boeing reaffirmed its stance that the 767 would end, this doesn't nearly come as quite the same shock as on the same day they announced the 777X's first delivery delay again. This is primarily driven by the plane maker already knowing that it needed to in some capacity end production on the 767F following fuel efficiency rules for aircraft with specific MTOWs. All these regulations being implemented are part of an overall focus that aims to make flying more efficient, and then enhance industry standards. Many operators worldwide have adopted the 767F, which they rely heavily on across key markets. However, none more so than within the United States, where operators such as UPS and FedEx are utilizing this for their flying right around the world. While exemptions have been discussed regarding the extension of the life of the 767F at Boeing, despite the long-standing success and the success it still enjoys nowadays, long-term demand for this variant obviously won't be there forever. Moreover, there has been persistent discussions regarding a potential new freighter to replace the role of the outgoing 767F. Could this be in a possible form of the 787F? Well, analysts and upper executives have discussed this plane in the last 5 years, but as of late there has unsurprisingly been not too much public movement, because they have way more problems than launching a 787F. Was there hope for a 767F to continue? Well, Boeing saw a bill approved earlier this year by the US House of Representatives that permitted 5 additional years for production of this type beyond what the international standards mandated. This approval fundamentally gave Boeing permission to continue producing the popular aircraft, should parties require it. But despite this, and being a positive, Boeing, per their latest announcement and in response to strike action and other issues, will see production come to a close likely in 2027, or when they can get through their backlog. What this means after for the 767F remains to be seen, but the aircraft has enjoyed a lengthy stay in the Boeing family and will obviously live on in some capacity. On to the final story, and British Airways is becoming the latest major international airline to be impacted by part shortages for key aircraft elements. And in response to an inability to get parts for key Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 engines that are on its 787 Dreamliners, precautionary measures are being taken to make its network cope. British Airways is apologising, but is going to be suspending, delaying, and making other changes to its route network over the winter season for 2024 and 2025. This really focusing in on the long-haul network. As part of these changes, for example, it will suspend plans to recommence flying to markets such as Malaysia, with the reduction of frequency to the popular Qatar. Other changes will include not offering Bangkok for the winter 24-25 schedule, in response again, to reiterate to you, those difficulties spurred on by the engines. As aircraft have been parked up, British Airways faces a problem concerning its ability also to acquire aircraft on time, which impacts its overall ability to fleet plan. And yes, I'm taking a look at planes such as the 777X, but generally you could stretch this to the 787, A350 and more. It really is affecting their own ability to launch towards new markets and retire aging planes. And it means if some 787s do have issues, they don't have other aircraft on hand, and potentially the amount of time that they were given to really cope with this is not enough to head to the leasing market. Unfortunately, the knock-on effect from all of this can be huge. You may lose ground to competitors across certain regions, and obviously you're going to be losing money, as your operation will become less efficient. British Airways, though, can seek some comfort, like I always say, knowing that they're not the only ones facing something similar. That obviously is not going to heal what has occurred or make it better, but they know it's not an isolated problem and isn't necessarily something they're doing wrong as a business. What are your thoughts on today's industry news? Let me know down below in the comments. Thanks a bunch for your support. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow for more news.